What if I told you that what seemed like a disaster became a turning point? What Hamilton, starting from position 12, showed that SF-25 is not broken, only misunderstood. Stay, because what happened in Imola can change the entire 2025 season. The engineers faced a car with a back, almost indomitable rear, which generated erratic behavior in rapid curves and traction outlets. To this, an excessively narrow tire operational window was added. Finding the ideal thermal balance between front and rear rubber was almost an impossible mission. That limitation not only compromised the rhythm in the race, but made it extremely difficult to perform on a return, as exposed in classification sessions where the SF-25 seemed a completely different car, far from its potential in a long batch potential. In addition, there were notorious aerodynamic inconsistencies, especially during changes of direction, which affected the balance of the car. The aerodynamic load became unpredictable, compromising the pilot's confidence to the braking limit and in full curve transition. Even the braking system presented irregularities, with specific loss of braking power that baffled Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton during the first major awards. To this were added anomalous behaviors under changing track conditions, which left the car practically without adaptation in rainy stages, variable temperatures, or the presence of lateral wind. This accumulation of deficiencies led to a historical debacle in Imola. For the first time in more than a decade, no Ferrari managed to classify the Q3. A fact that goes beyond statistics. It represents the symbolic collapse of the hope that this car could compete immediately. The image of both SF-25 being left at home, in an Italian circuit, resonated as a humiliation for a team that historically measures its success not only by titles, but for pride and legacy. The Italian press was ruthless, the fans incredulous, and inside the garage, that bitter tension of a team that seemed to have lost in its own technical labyrinth was felt. But it is precisely in this context of hopelessness where a different narrative begins to forge. One that is not born from the data or from the wind tunnel, not even from a miraculous update, but of the human factor. Because just when Ferrari seemed farther from the light, Lewis Hamilton began to understand something that no one had managed to decipher from the SF-25. And that would change everything. When most had already ruled out any possibility of a good result for Ferrari in Imola, Lewis Hamilton showed why he is still one of the most valuable and determining pilots in the history of Formula One. However, what Hamilton achieved that Sunday was not a simple comeback. It was a masterclass for management, precision, and strategic reading. And more importantly, it was the first tangible sign that the SF-25 had a hidden potential that until then no one had managed to activate. From the first laps, Hamilton demonstrated something fundamental. The long round rhythm of the SF-25 was much stronger than the one shown in classification. The car, released from the voltages of the fast lap, began to behave with unprecedented stability in the season. Hamilton knew how to adapt to that new context with an outstanding sensitivity. He dosed the wear of the tires, maintained a clean path to avoid overheating the compounds, and constantly remained out of the dirty air of the cars of front, thus maximizing the useful life of his first game. One of the key factors was its surgical use of career conditions. When the virtual safety car appeared after a minor clue incident, Ferrari made a brilliant strategic decision: call Hamilton to boxes just at the optimal moment. That early stop allowed him to gain critical positions without risking track. But the maneuver would not have had the same effect without the second tactical opportunity, the safety car reel. Here again, Hamilton executed a perfect relaunch. He accelerated at the right time, read his rivals, and placed himself in an attack position without wasting energy from the hybrid system, retaining battery for moments of maximum demand. But the most revealing was its management of SF-25 under real career conditions. Hamilton described after the race having felt a synergy with the car he had not experienced from China. And that, translated into technical terms, means that the car remained within its ideal operational window during most of the race, something that had not happened in any other weekend. The aerodynamic equilibrium was more predictable, the most controllable rear, and the traction and much more efficient curve outlet. The British pilot took advantage of that improvement with mastery, dosing his rhythm and executing surgical overtaking at the few moments when a real window opened to do so. Even his driving style played a crucial role. Hamilton, who had been working silently to adapt his technique to SF-25, opted for a more fluid approach in medium curve, releasing the brake more progressively to maintain a faster minimal speed in passing by curve. This detail, which seems lower, was key to avoiding aerodynamic imbalances that so affected the car in changes of direction. Thus, he managed to maintain a consistency of rhythm after return that dislodged to his direct rivals, many of whom saw how the Ferrari that in classification seemed harmless was now a serious threat. The result was an unexpected but deserved fourth. It was not a victory, but in the context in which it arrived, it was worth one. Because it was a clear demonstration that the SF-25, although defective, was not convicted. That there was a way to make it work. That, with the right pilot at the right time, even an erratic car can become a competitive tool. And above all, it was the proof that Hamilton is committed to 100% with this new stage in Ferrari. It is no longer a decorative figure. He is a technical leader, a strategist, and an impeccable executor. What happened in Imola should not be read solely as a successful comeback or as a good isolated result. What we saw was a very concrete indication that Ferrari has found a technical and emotional anchor point around which he can rebuild his season. And that point is Lewis Hamilton. The fourth place that achieved not only saved a catastrophic weekend in terms of classification, he also reconfigured the internal narrative of the team, consolidated a new technical hierarchy within the team, and raised expectations both inside and outside the paddock. For Ferrari, this result represents much more than points in the table. It is a validation that your 2025 project is not lost. Since the beginning of the championship, the SF-25 had behaved as a rebel, contradictory car, unable to offer confidence in key moments. But in Imola, for the first time, the team understood how to create the right conditions for its car to work. This knowledge is not less. In Formula One, discovering how to put a car in race conditions is half of the battle. And in that sense, the technical work done in the GP of Emilia Romagna can become the base model for the next calendar quotes. But even more, this event completely changes the symbiotic relationship between Ferrari and Hamilton. Until now, many questioned if the British pilot was the right piece for this puzzle. His arrival was media, historical, but also seen with skepticism by some paddock sectors that believed that the Italian team needed a younger, moldable builder to grow within the team. But what Hamilton has done is to demonstrate that his experience is not a ballast, but an invaluable technical asset. Its ability to read the car, adjust your driving style, and communicate precisely what you need to the team, it has allowed us to accelerate an adaptation process that other pilots would have needed half a championship to execute. From the point of view of the internal dynamics of the team, this could also generate a turning point. Charles Leclerc, which until now had behaved as Ferrari's natural leader, has been clearly surpassed in Imola by Hamilton both in management and in pace consistency. And although Ferrari does not explicitly operate with a number one pilot, the reality is that the dynamics of power begin to bow to who is able to extract more from the car. If this trend continues, it is very possible that we see a rebalance in the allocation of technical and strategic resources within the team. Looking ahead to the championship, the panorama also changes. Before Imola, Ferrari seemed condemned to fight for the middle zone of the top 10. But now, with a promising base, technical improvements in process, and a pilot capable of running under pressure, the equipment can be projected with renewed ambitions. Monaco, Spain, Canada, all circuits with different characteristics, but where the SF-25 aerodynamic base could find a new balance if Imola's technical approach is replicated. And if Hamilton maintains this ascending curve of trust and symbiosis with the car, it is not unreasonable to think of podiums, or even victories in strategically favorable scenarios. Personally, for Hamilton, this moment is also crucial. It is not just a rematch against those who doubted their decision to leave Mercedes. It is the reaffirmation that it is still on the cusp of its competitive capacity, that can still lead a project from adversity, adapt, and make a real difference. That is still a total pilot. One that not only competes but transforms equipment from the inside. What happened in Imola goes beyond a simple classification or a results table. What we saw was a story of redemption, discovery, connection between man and machine when everything seemed to be lost. Lewis Hamilton did not win Emilia Romagna's Grand Prix, but what he achieved was possibly even more valuable. The confidence of the team, the renewed respect of his critics, and above all, the internal certainty that he still has what is necessary to mark an era, even in an environment as unpredictable as Ferrari. In a season that was outlined to be a continuation of the failures of the past, Imola represented a break in that narrative. It was the time when the most questioned car of the paddock, the SF-25, ceased to be a load and began to be a tool. An imperfect tool, yes, but with a hidden potential that could only be unlocked by a pilot with the experience, sensitivity, and tactical vision of someone like Hamilton. Because in Formula One it is not enough to have a fast car. You have to know when to press, when to wait, when to sacrifice a return to win a race. And that is the level at which Hamilton has played again. Ferrari, meanwhile, found something equally valuable, a base on which to build. A setup, a development management, a career strategy that finally gave results. The fourth place will not be cover on its own, but for Maranello, it represents a silent turn in a season that threatened to become another frustration. Now they have direction, purpose, and a clear leader at the wheel. The message is clear: the 2025 project still breathes, and it can grow. For fans, Imola was a necessary reminder. Why we follow this category. Why the F1 is not just about winning, but about transforming the unlikely into possible. To see how, in a sport that is pure science and calculation, there is still room for emotion, for courage, for the moments that put on chicken skin. And precisely that, was what Lewis Hamilton gave us at the Enzo E. Dino Ferrari Autodrome. What comes from now on is uncertain. The season is long, many curves, and the relentless rivals. But one thing has been clear: Hamilton has aroused. The SF-25 has shown its first real flash of life. And Ferrari has a story again to tell. It is not the end of the road, it is only the beginning of something that could be memorable.